and McCalling measures. I see we also are joined by my Ward 6 colleague, Councilmember Charles Allen. These bills include B25-0116, Department of Park and Recreation Hour Expansion Amendment Act of 2023, B25-0477, Expanding Community Access to Safe and Clean Recreation Space Act of 2023, B25-0116, Department of Recreation Hour Expansion Amendment Act of 2023, would expand the regular operating hours of all facilities managed and operated by DPR. And this measure would be established the following schedule for DPR facilities as followed, if passes. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday from 12 noon to 5 p.m. Currently, the vast majority of DPR facilities are closed on Sundays, and there are several are closed also on Saturdays. Expanding community access to safe and clean recreational space Act of 2023 will require DPR to establish a program in partnership with DC Public Schools to expand safe and sanitary community access to recreation facilities and to establish at least one site in every ward on evenings and weekends outside of the hours in which facilities are in active use by schools and students. Through this partnership, DPR will also commit to providing security and custodial services that are necessary to allow safe and sanitary use of recreation amenities. This bill will also extend the work of the Community Access to Recreation Space Pilot Program funded in fiscal year 2024. We look forward to the testimony regarding these two measures and look forward to adding these offerings to DPR Recreation, also introduced by Councilmember Charles Allen. Councilmember Allen, any opening remarks?
Thanks so much, Chairman White. I appreciate this. Thank you very much for holding the hearing and for adding this bill to the agenda. I was in support of both these efforts, but I introduced the Department of Parks and Recreation Hours Expansion Amendment Act of 2023 in February 2023, over a year ago, because partly I think we just want to see that the majority of DC's recreation and community centers can be open more often. I think what we see is most are not open on the weekends, most are not open on Sundays, and limited hours on Saturdays. And not having our recreation and community centers open on those weekends, I think it denies an important space for district residents of all ages, but especially our young people who might have very few other places to safely go. I think it's a testament, frankly, to DPR that we want to see continued programming, expansion of programming, more hours, because our rec centers are spaces that are safe spaces for all of our residents, but in particular our young people. They're a place where trusted adults are able to work with our young people. It's a space where positive programming is able to take place. And so I think that the legislation is intended to really also broaden the definition of what we mean by our emphasis on improving public safety, because I think our rec centers are safe spaces. And so we want our young people and all residents to have those safe spaces to go. Now, after I introduced the bill, the executive announced expanding hours at rec centers with an emphasis on access for teens, but I just think it only goes halfway. I'd love to see us go all the way on the weekends. Our DPR rec centers operate about 15 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and about 8 hours a day on Saturday in some places. And again, many are just closed on Sundays. So being able to have our rec centers open all weekend in the evenings, I think it goes to exactly what we want, which is our rec centers to be open when our young people need them most. And I think it can provide young people with a place, a safe place where they can go. So I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity right now. I'm looking forward to hearing from our DPR leadership. In particular, I'd like to know, is there a policy disagreement or is it just a budget disagreement, right? Because I think that if there's a policy disagreement, I want to be able to understand why we would not want to keep them open on the weekends. If it's more of a budget issue that we just need to make sure that we're funding and supporting DPR in a way to be open all weekend, then I think that's a different conversation, and I'd look forward to having that. So again, Mr. White, thank you very much for holding this hearing. I'm looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one public witness, Ms. Tisha Cockrell, Friends, was president of Friends of Regular Sile Recreation Center. Is Ms. Cockrell here? Oh, I see we are also joined by my Ward 2 colleague, Councilman Brooke Pinto. Councilman Pinto, do you have an opening statement before we go to the first panel?
I do, if that's all right, Chairman.
Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
Thank you so much. I really want to thank you for holding a hearing on these two important bills. We continue to hear from kids and families around the city a desire to have more access to recreation space at different times, including the evening and weekends, and for that space to be secure. And we know that safe access to recreational space is really critical to all of our public safety goals in the city. And so I appreciate your partnership in ensuring that neighbors across DC can have this access, which will help bring more people together and build stronger communities. I introduced the Expanding Community Access to Safe and Clean Recreational Space Act of 2023 to require DPR in partnership with DCPS to expand safe and sanitary community access to recreational facilities in every single ward on evenings and weekends. Recreational facilities at DCPS schools should be and often are utilized by the public during evening and weekend hours, but safety and sanitation concerns can and does deter use, or in some cases has led school administrators to close public access to these spaces entirely, which is the worst case outcome. To balance the desire of the public to use these spaces with the need for the schools to maintain safe and clean spaces, I propose this bill to provide dedicated security and custodial services and personnel during these expanded hours. The expanded hours will be coordinated with school uses so that we can maximize the benefit our residents receive from their local rec centers throughout the week without impacting student activity. The bill also requires the DPR establish at least one site in each ward to ensure broad access to recreational facilities. When selecting new sites in each ward, DPR would be required to prioritize sites in communities that have experienced historical disinvestment, high levels of traffic incidences, crime and public safety challenges, and high rates of chronic diseases that may be connected to a lack of physical activity. I funded a pilot version of this bill and this program at Garrison Elementary School and Banneker High School last year and in last year's budget, and this legislation builds on that pilot. Community use of our recreational facilities at DCPS schools goes beyond the traditional scope of responsibility for principals and school administrators, yet these facilities represent a valuable asset to the surrounding neighborhoods when open to the public. This bill directly responds to DPR's Ready to Play master plan, which acknowledges that DCPS is an essential provider of outdoor recreational space on a school by school basis, but lacks citywide public access policy to address the safety and maintenance concerns that principals have raised. So I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today and supporting the other bill on today's agenda, Councilmember Allen's bill about expanding hours to our recreational spaces, which is vitally important. So thank you again, Chairman White.
Thank you. Ms. Tisha Cockrell.
Good afternoon, Council Member and Chair Trayon White Sr. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today. As you said, my name is Tisha Cockrell, and I'm the president of the Friends of Riggs LaSalle Recreation Center. We are partnered with DC Department of Parks and Recreation. We work together with the site director and the staff at our community Riggs LaSalle Recreation Center and aid with program support. We very much support the council bills 25-0116 and 25-0477. However, without addressing long-standing repair and staff issues, the Riggs LaSalle Recreation Center cannot provide the environment envisioned within the above bills. Some of our requests have been rectified, such as lighting, camera placement, a few added programs, etc. And for that, we, as usual, want to thank you. However, many items, issues, and concerns remain pending and are incomplete. I would like to take this time to discuss the staff shortage, pertinent programming, resources, repairs, etc. at our neighborhood community center. Hopefully, a serious discussion will be had for recreation facility staff to feel empowered enough to delegate decision-making authority to help them do their job, feel safe, and assist the community in this fashion. So I also would like to just go down and skip all of those actual things that need to be repaired, as we've testified numerous times in that regard. And we're thankful for the assistance given to help us rectify and maintain our community center, and we want to keep this momentum going. we need more funding, staff maintenance. I heard Councilmember Pinto mention security. We need upgrades. We've mentioned over and over that our center has been subjected to deferred maintenance and neglect for several years. We hope to continue our discussions to see these issues complete. We only have 3 employees staff at this current moment, so we're severely short-staffed to even take on such an endeavor. So with that, that is my time and my testimony. I'm glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to ask you, Miss Cockrell, were these items fixed at Riggs LaSalle already, or are they still outstanding?
They're still outstanding. I sent to yourself and your staff, as well as other members of your committee, pictures of the, of course, we've been talking about the roof for ages, but of pictures of how the doors don't lock on
Okay.
the Nicholson Street side. The door on the Nicholson Street side is not ADA compliant. If you're in a wheelchair, you have any kind of other bound physical issues, you can't even get in the door unless someone opens it for you. Also on the Riggs Road side, we had some lighting that was rectified, but what we thought were lights in the I guess whatever that is over the door, like like an awning over the door, they're actually drained. So after hours when it's dark, that complete area is pitch black, and that's not really safe. Um, Let me see, bathrooms were still an issue. I know there was some discussion from community members about the bathrooms on the field. At one point, they weren't able to be locked, so that was a hazard with people kind of hiding and hanging out in the bathrooms. And then now there's an issue of, I think they are locked, but they might be permanently locked. I need some clarification on that. And so people who may be on the tot lot playground or on the splash park playground or splash pad, I'm sorry, aren't able to use the bathrooms if the recreation center is closed. And like I said, we have 3 employees, and I guess they rotate the weekends, but that used to be staffed by 5 employees once upon a time. So I'd like to see some effort toward rectifying several issues before they decide that that particular recreation center, I can't speak for others, should be open long term on the weekends, as they'll be severely short staffed with all kind of cosmetic and indoor outdoor issues to be rectified.
Thank you for that. So, um, you're not fully in favor of this bill at that rec at this time until these other issues is addressed, correct?
Correct.
And what would you say some of the hallmark activities happening at Riggs LaSalle right now on a daily basis?
I know I saw where they were, I guess pickleball has been one of the new programs added. I believe there's piano for young, I think maybe elementary up to junior high, maybe 6 to 12. There's the young ladies and young men on the Rise program. I think there's some senior exercising activities. And there's, I think, a senior softball team. But there's so much work to be done all around the field. We are getting that sunshade for the tot lot, which is great. The splash park has always had off and on issues of sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, or there's, a lingering mechanical issue. So there's,
A mechanical issue at the splash park?
I think sometimes all of the splash, pieces work and sometimes they don't. They're not always full stream. Sometimes they're clogged or they're spraying into the parking lot.
All right, we want to do a walkthrough there. I think we sent your request. You sent a letter. I think it was 3 different people sent 3 different letters about outstanding issues at the facility in the last hearing. And I'll double check to see what was DGS responses to those repairs were and where the work orders were. 'Cause some of these were structural issues as well,
Yes.
especially the roof.
Yes.
And just I had a question about how it's going to affect the programming there, but you answered some of that. and just some of it's just common sense. If that stuff's not repaired, then it's hard to really have a fully functional facility if basic things not repaired. Um, I'll digress to see if any other members have any other questions. I'll start with Councilmember Charles Allen.
I didn't have any other questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think your recommendation of doing a walkthrough is the right one, so I'll follow your lead on that. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Pinto.
I don't have any additional questions. Thank you so much for testifying.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Ms. Cockrell. We appreciate you always showing up and advocating for your community. We look forward to following up with you. If you can leave your information in the chat, email, we'll follow up because we want to do a walkthrough with you at the facility.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Then the second portion of this hearing will be our government witnesses. If we can elevate our government witnesses to the panel. Good afternoon, Ms. Director Freeman, Mr. Coates, Deputy Director Coates. It is the practice, Danielle, I'm not gonna butcher your last name, but I'll get it together today. It is the practice of this committee to swear in all government witnesses. We've been asked to share our screen, if we can do that. And while we're doing that, we want to ask you to come on screen if you're going to be speaking and raise your right hand and cut your microphone on. Do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're giving today to the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs is the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you. You can start off, Director, if you have a presentation or testimony.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson White, Council Member Pinto and Allen, and members of the Recreation Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs, and members of the public joining us today. I am Beanie Mac Freeman, Director of the DC Department of Parks and Recreation, and I am joined by my colleague, Marcus Coates, DPR's Deputy Director of Recreation Services. I'm here today to testify regarding two proposed bills, B25-0116, the Department of Parks and Recreation Hours Expansion Amendment Act of 2023, and B25-0477, the Expanding Community Access to Safe and Clean Recreational Space Act of 2023. DPR continues to deliver high-quality recreation programs and service to all district residents. We operate an expansive inventory of amenities across 80 recreation centers, 35 pools and aquatic centers, and 243 park sites. We are the district's central provider of public playgrounds, athletic fields, spray parks, tennis courts, pickleball courts, dog parks, community gardens, urban farms, and more. DPR's nationally recognized programs and services enhance the health, well-being, and quality of life for every individual we serve. We value the council's support for DPR's mission and sincere interest in ensuring all of our residents have access to recreational facilities. Throughout my testimony, I will speak to how DPR has expanded hours of operations and continues to promote access to recreation across the district through our Ready to Play master plan. DPR believes these two bills are very thoughtful. However, we also believe that we have also expanded the recreation services, and that this bill, if introduced, could limit access to what we already do. Both bills come at a high cost during a challenging budget environment. We estimate it will cost a minimum of $8 million annually for DPR to adhere to requirements of B25-0116 and at least $2 million per year for DPR to implement B25-0477. The first bill I'll discuss, which seeks to expand access to recreational opportunities, excuse me, I'm sorry, by requiring all DPR operated facilities to be open to the public during a prescribed set of hours, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday from noon to 5 p.m. While we appreciate the council's support for DPR facilities in recognition of the immense value that DPR recreation centers, pools, and aquatic centers bring to the district residents, DPR does not anticipate this change will support increased youth access or advance efforts to reduce violent crime among youth. We join our district government partners in reinforcing that youth should be in school during school hours. DPR takes a more tailored and strategic approach to determining hours of operation based on community need. In spring 2023, DPR successfully restored our hours of operation, which were more restricted during the COVID-19 pandemic. With Mayor Bowser's support and the investment, DPR continues operating with this expanded footprint. Our current operating posture effectively addresses the intensive demand for DPR's recreation aquatic facilities while being good stewards of the city's public resources. This bill was introduced in the winter of 2023 before DPR expanded its hours. It is DPR's position that this bill is no longer needed since the current operation hours include Monday through Friday access from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at 8 recreation centers. In addition, we provide Monday through Friday access from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday access at 19 recreation centers. A total of 27 sites were carefully selected because they offer the most robust amenities, such as fitness rooms, esports rooms, large gymnasiums, multipurpose rooms, aquatic facilities, and many more, making them the most frequently used by our community. Additionally, DPR operates our 4 largest indoor aquatic centers, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., and on Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., which goes beyond the scope of the proposed bill. The bill currently as written actually eliminates early morning swim accessed at most of our utilized pools. In addition, this bill has other unintended consequences. Imposing these strict hours of operation without differentiation for facility type or available amenities impedes DPR's ability to operate our inventory of recreation facilities strategically and in a manner that best serves all. While each DPR facility has a set of core operating hours, DPR uses our expertise and deep understanding of the community needs when determining evening, weekend, and early morning hours of operation. If this bill is passed as written, DPR may be forced to significantly reduce program offerings. This would be necessary so that staff can open our many smaller neighborhood facilities for additional hours in the evenings and weekends, a move that comes at a premium cost and for which we see less of a demand. As I mentioned earlier, DPR manages an inventory of 80 recreation centers as well as 35 pools and aquatic centers. Operating all DPR facilities from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday requires a comprehensive new staffing model with additional FTEs. DPR anticipates that this legislation will incur significant costs without a substantial return on the district's investment in recreational opportunities for residents. The costs associated with this legislation include increased staffing and a projected $5 million in overtime costs in FY25. We also anticipate increased security costs of at least $3 million annually. I'd also like to note that DGS Protective Services Division provides on-site security at DPR sites and currently is facing a proposed cut in FY25 of $2.7 million. This bill would also require DPR to request additional janitorial services and increases ongoing maintenance and repair needs. B25-0477, the Expanding Community Access to Safe and Clean Recreational Space Act of 2023. This bill requires DPR to establish a new program with the DC Public Schools to require one additional school in each ward to provide public access to their outdoor recreational amenities in the evenings and on weekends. It directs DPR to provide additional resources to address school concerns related to increased cleaning and security needs due to increased public use. In addition to B25-0477, DPR is aware of a draft in the Budget Support Act subtitle, which would expand the scope of the legislation to 24 sites, 3 per each of the district's 8 wards. DPR is currently collaborating with our partners at DCPS, the Department of General Services, and DPW to implement the pilot version of this bill, the Community Access to Recreational Spaces pilot at Garrison Elementary School and Shaw Field adjacent to Banneker High School, per the requirements of the FY24 BSA. DPR recognizes that DCPS is an essential provider of outdoor recreational space in the district. We also see DC public charter schools and independent schools as potential partners in expanding public access to recreational amenities. DPR is ready to play master plan, identify specific DCPS and DC public charter schools and service gaps for various amenities, including recreation centers, fields, playgrounds, basketball courts, and tennis courts. DPR has an unwavering commitment to support the goal of expanding access to recreational amenities in the district. However, we want to acknowledge that the decision to open up education campuses for public recreational use rests with our partners at DCPS and school leadership. We'd also like to take this opportunity to express appreciation for the schools that already welcome community use of their outdoor recreation amenities without additional support. We understand and empathize with school leaders' concerns that increased community use may also increase the need for cleaning services and security. In addition, there's concern about shortening the lifespan of amenities such as artificial turf field and playgrounds through repeated use. However, it's essential to realize that DPR does not have direct authority over DCPS properties and their uses, nor do we provide security or cleaning services directly. We also do not staff standalone outdoor facilities. Given all of these factors, it's more effective for DCPS and school leaders to directly address any facility needs associated with the community use. This way, they can work directly with DGS and other vendors to procure any services that they deem necessary for the successful implementation of the program. DPR encourages using the strategic recommendations and Ready to Play to help identify expanded locations for recreational access across the district, such as DCPS schools, public charter schools, independent schools, and beyond. We also stand ready to support our partners at DCPS in facilitating increased public use of the school properties. DPR believes that there are better approaches to expanding access than what is outlined in B25-0477. Lastly, we'd like to speak about cost. DPR anticipates operating this program for 8 sites. As required by this bill, it will cost approximately $2 million annually. Additionally, we would also like to note that expanding the program to 24 sites, as indicated in the council's draft BSA subtitle, will cost $6 million per year. These costs include additional urban park rangers to lock and unlock properties, cleaning and security services provided by an outside party or parties, and site needs such as signage, locks, keys, and repairs. In conclusion, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to testify this afternoon regarding these 2 bills and B25-0116 and B25-0477, which seek equitable access to recreation facilities. Though DPR does not support either bill as they are currently written, we uphold our commitment to delivering high-quality recreational services and programs and facilities to all residents. We are happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, for that. I want to jump right in. I know you said that this bill limits access to recreation based on what you already have in place. Were you just speaking to the hours opening up early in the morning at 6 a.m.? What specifically do you mean by limited access? These bills limit access to what you do.
Correct. The current bill outlines 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And so it would eliminate the 6 a.m. openings. I'd also like to note that, as you know, we do things outside of 9 p.m. So tomorrow we're doing our late night hype for teens right in the Great Ward 8 at Berry Farms, and we hope to see you there. But that is an example of some of the work that we do.
Got it. I also want to ask about the Rex opening up on Sundays. I just want to know from you what prohibits DPR from opening up the recs on Sundays. There are several recs that are not opening up on Sundays. If you could speak to what those are and why they're closed on Sundays.
Deputy Director Coates.
Thank you, Director. Good afternoon, Council. Good afternoon, Chairman. So DPR currently operates Monday through Saturday. We do have Sunday programming at locations for programming specific tennis. We have aquatics programs happening throughout the day. So we are operating on Sundays. We have park rangers available. All of our outdoor amenities are available to the public for public usage. And so we're 7-day, 365-day operations throughout the year. And so we continue to support the communities through access through our outdoor amenities.
What about indoor amenities? I know the summertime is up, and I didn't even know the director spoke about public safety and being joining this movement by the mayor that all agencies participate in public safety. Is there any thoughts to extending services on Sundays indoor?
Our aquatic centers are open. As the director stated, our aquatic centers are open for public uses as well, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sundays. So we have programming for youth indoors for our aquatics facilities.
And is this let me see. Is this 8 of the 19 centers? Which
No, the aquatics facilities. So we have Berry Farm, Tacoma, and a few others that in Deanwood we operate on Sundays for public usage.
in your testimony, you stated that 4 aquatic centers were open on Sundays outside of the current ones that are open. Which is that in addition to these ones you just mentioned?
No, those are the ones that I mentioned before.
Okay. How many staff do you forecast DPR needs in order to fulfill the required necessary staffing for the DPR hours expansion amendment act of 2023 if it should pass?
I can get the direct number. I know for operations, we require at least 2 people per shift. And that's to make sure that the facility is open, accessible. We were able to meet the demands and needs of the people who come into the facility. And that's the number per shift. As we go into depth of the programming, which requires much more detail, the number of amenities, the rooms, and things that we help to utilize the space will determine how many staff will be overall needed. And so it's a complex formula, and it differs by facility and by ward. But I can give you a number later, but at least 2 per shift.
2 per shift. I've been thinking a little bit more, and I guess someone has to
That's
be
at a minimum.
Okay.
That's at a bare minimum. Definitely can require more.
Are you outside of these 2 bills? Are you hearing from the community an appetite to have recreation centers open longer and in additional days?
No, actually, you heard opposite. We've gotten complaints about traffic and trash at some facilities where we utilize on weekends and in the evening hours. The lights have been complaints about lighting being on, past certain hours. It's disturbing neighbors. We've heard the opposite of that. And our approach is to take a community and case-by-case basis as we operate our facilities.
Thank you. And in your testimony, Director, you stated the bill would incur significant costs without a sustainable return on district investment and recreation opportunities for residents. Can you elaborate on that, Director?
Absolutely. When you think about programming, especially for young people, oftentimes we have to meet them where they are and cater programming and design programming for where what they'd like. And Sunday hours necessarily for young people. They like structured activities in the summertime. You know, they prefer to be outside. And so having the facility open may not necessarily, you would also have to have programming, which comes at a premium cost, because you would not just be able to have the doors open and say, okay, it's an open facility, come in. You would actually have to be strategic about operationalizing something that's going to keep them engaged.
Thank you. And I got 3 minutes. Um, in your testimony, Director, you stated that DPR does not provide security or cleaning services directly, no standalone outdoor facilities. What service are DPR currently providing under this pilot program? I know we have one at Garrison and at the Banneker Shaw location.
So the DPR will be responsible for opening up the gates, opening up the field, and having access. We don't do the security portion or the can receptacle pickup. Those are our other agency partners.
Okay. Who was responsible for providing security at facilities at DPR, the contractor?
So we work with our partners at PSD through DGS, and we have a intra-district MOU with them for security at our sites. And so the vendors vary at different sites. We wouldn't necessarily know that.
I do know we have this community access to recreation space pilot program. How is this going so far?
We're still working through it, trying to finalize the four agencies and trying to collaborate and have it finalized.
Okay. So has it even started? Where are we in the implementation of it?
It hasn't been implemented.
Okay. And I know we talked about a stronger partnership with DCPS, and we work well to open up the pool at Baloo. I want to thank you for that and your leadership on that, and also Principal Haith. Our seniors, and especially in the Congress Heights community, are very happy. And even some of the residents. I've even seen the principal and some of the teachers at the pool in the morning before they start work. How are you building stronger relationships with, I guess, with DCPS as a whole, with DPR?
So that's a great question. We've looked at a map actually of all of our recreation centers that are in close proximity with DCPS, because we don't at any time want any youth hanging out at our recreation centers during school hours. So we have a partnership, and actually with MPD as well, the truancy office. Not that because DPR does not encourage truancy. We are not a safe haven for youth who should be in schools. And so we have a zero tolerance with that. And so we are working closely with schools who are near recreation centers, also trying to mitigate some of the issues that may happen in schools. Our roving leaders do a great job because they are in the schools. So if there's spillage, we know, the term meet me at the rec. So we want to mitigate and troubleshoot some of the issues. So our partnership is getting stronger, especially after some recent incidents, unfortunate incidents that have happened in our.
Thank you. I'm over my time, so I'll digress. Councilmember Charles Allen, then Councilmember Brooke Pinto, followed by Councilmember Christina Henderson.
Thanks so much, Chairman White and Director Freeman, Mr. Coates, and Team DPR. Good to see you all. I certainly hope, and it sounds like you do, you take these two pieces of legislation, and certainly I'm going to speak to the one that I introduced, as a sign of confidence in DPR, a sign of wanting to see more of what you provide. So I hope that's the way you're taking it. For Ward 6, Ward 6 has the fewest number of DPR facilities than any other ward in our city. So we'd love more. And we don't have a single center that's open on a Sunday. So we do not have a space where you will go on a Sunday when we look at Sherwood and King Greenleaf. Well, I'm talking about interior spaces. So yes, there's a playground, there's gonna be a field space, but I'm talking about interior spaces. So I think we can level set that we all believe DPR represents a great place for our young people and for residents to be. Like we all agree there, right? All right, so making sure there's no weird thing there. So what I'm trying to understand is like the legislation itself, of course, would come with a cost. So there's no one would debate that. Every bill we introduce comes with a cost. So is the opposition, and maybe opposition is too strong a word, but is the opposition to the bill really related to, let's take Sunday hours, for example, that we just can't do it because we don't have the funds and the resources. That if you had the funds and resources, and I agree with you, Director, the intent of the bill is not just say open the doors and just nothing happens there, but to have the staffing, have the programming, but to run that would obviously cost money. If money was there, would there be an opposition to Sunday hours?
So, you know, Sunday hours come with a premium, and there's a Sunday premium director, Deputy Director Coach. You want to speak to that?
Yes, absolutely. All of our staff who are unionized employees are granted a Sunday premium, which comes at 25% of their salary. And so that can, fluctuate depending on how, much their salary is. So yeah, there's a premium cost. In addition to that, there's also a premium cost for night differential.
I hear you that there's definitely gonna be a cost. What I'm trying to make sure I understand is if cost were not a factor, if we were able to find resources, like, is there some philosophical disagreement around not having programming, not having spaces on Sunday? Or is it hey, listen, that would cost a lot of money. We'd have to work on programming and staffing, and that's the real problem. Like, if that were solved for, and that's a big if, of course, but if that were solved for, it's not like there's a philosophical problem against having programming on a Sunday, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
and I'm not dismissing the cost. It's there, it's real. I just want to make sure that it's not like you just say Sunday is just not a good day for services.
Understanding, and I think hearing you say, we're not talking about just opening up the building, but actually programming with intentionality. Correct.
I agree. In my mind, that's a given, but I understand you want to make sure it's clear. The intent would be not just to open a door and like, hey, just run wild. We're talking about positive programming, the good things that DPR does, right? That's what I think people are wanting is they want more of the good things you already do. So again, I think the bills are certainly introduced with the intent of complementary of what DPR does, and we just want more of it because again, we think there's good things happening there. The other piece I want to make sure I understood because I think I disagree with the interpretation I think I heard you say, but I just want to make sure I clarify. The legislation says when it talks about the hours, at least, it doesn't require it. So I think, Director Freeman, you talked about some of the earlier hour programming. The way we wrote the legislation, it says at least the hours, which would allow for the earlier hours to be run. It wouldn't preclude or shut down anything taking place. But regardless of if we have a difference of interpretation, there's clearly no intent here to say we want to limit what DPR is doing. It would be wanting to, again, we're trying to expand what DPR is doing. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
So can I spend a second longer just on the Saturday and the Sundays, just to make sure, because I hear you around truancy. I don't think anybody's trying to say that we want, as great as the rec is, we don't want people to not be in the classroom because they're at the rec. But Saturdays and Sundays, we don't have that same challenge. And I would argue it's actually the exact time we want to be available for our young people because, again, we're creating a positive space, a good space there. And I'm definitely focusing a lot of my conversation on our inside spaces because we do have the outside spaces that are probably, they're accessible and open on a Sunday. Is there any other problem around youth engagement on a weekend that if you've got the funding, if you've got the staff support, if you've got the programming, is there anything I'm missing about why you wouldn't want to be doing programming on a weekend when otherwise kids aren't going to be in, they're not in school, so we'd want them to be positively engaged at DPR centers?
A great question, council member. So we are doing programming on Sundays. I'm not sure if you are aware of our OST Saturdays, which sometimes extend to Sundays as well. We take hundreds of youth on trips outside of the city for free of cost, and that's just one example of the many programmatic opportunities that we provide to district residents. We take them to trips to skiing and to New York for trips to see Broadway shows. So that flexibility allows us to be more intentional about the engagement that we provide our youth outside of the city.
I love that, but I guess I'm talking about, let me just be parochial and think about Ward 6. Sherwood Rec Center, Sundays is closed, the building. King Greenleaf closed on Sunday. Is there something I'm missing about why, again, assuming that you could create positive programming and staffing, of course, of why we wouldn't want to be open on a Sunday at those two Ward 6 sites?
No, I mean, again, we provide programming to youth across the district. Although you may not see the facility open, those youth are engaged through other avenues of programming. Like I said, that we travel through OST Saturdays and other trips and programs that we do provide. So it gives us that flexibility to not be focused on a facility operation standpoint, but more intentional in our programming and how we engage the youth and throughout the district.
Yeah, and again, that's great. Love that programming. Love those opportunities being created. I think, I'll say I was having a hard time, Mr. Coates, when I heard you say that you hear people complaining about the rec centers being open, about trash or lights. I hear the opposite. I hear people want to be able to go to the rec. They want to be able to use the resources. They want to be able to use those spaces, because every day of the week, the lights are on. There might be a piece of trash that's out there. There's noise when there's activity, of course. But if that was what was driving our decision, we'd close all our rec centers, which we obviously don't want to do. The solution to that is, let's work on making sure the trash gets picked up. Let's work on making sure the lights and the noise are managed. But if you choose to live next to a rec center, you know what you're signing up for. Like it's a vibrant space, and we want that. We want that type of activity there. It's a great way to engage our city. And frankly, I'm jealous. I'd love to be able to just walk right across the street and go over to my rec center. So I just kind of had a little bit of a struggle following you when you said you hear people not wanting more of what you offer because there's trash on the field or there's noise or lights. Because I think that could be true, frankly, for any day, just because of a high active use. But we would never say we want to shut down our rec centers any other day. So I hope you hear folks saying they like what you offer. They like what you do. We support what you do. We just want more of it.
No, we're in agreement, council member. We do have those complaints, but we are in agreement with you. We want to be accessible to the public. We want to engage. We want to make our facilities vibrant and engaging. So we're on the same page with that. Absolutely.
Okay.
And council member, yeah, I think the overall goal is to serve, right? And I don't think the facility needs to be open to do that, right? We recognize in communities, and that's what our roving leaders do. So when you heard Deputy Director Coates say we're a 365, 24/7 operation, we are going into communities, even King Greenleaf, and programming after hours on weekends and on Sundays, getting youth out of their community or sometimes in the community and hosting events. And there are times when we make the decision, I'll use Greenleaf as an example, Martin Luther King holiday, where the facilities would normally be closed. However, we partnered to do a day of service at the facility so that youth could come back and clean. So we're looking at strategies to engage just with more intentionality so that we can guarantee that they'll show up.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I know my time is up. The bill's intended to say, hey, DPR, you're doing good things. We just want more of you. And we want more of you all weekend long. And I think it's a great way to build on the things you're already doing that's really well, already doing that programming. We want more of it. And I think it's a way we engage community and create those safe spaces and those great spaces for community. Of course, we recognize that comes with money and resources to be able to do that. That's like any piece of legislation we have in front of us. So again, hope you take it for the spirit in which it's offered, which is we like what you do. We just want more of it. in Ward 6, where I have, I think, the fewest number of rec centers, and my physical sites are closed on Sundays. I know my neighbors and constituents would love to see more. So we can pick up that conversation later. So thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Ward 2 Councilmember Brooke Pinto.
Thank you, Chairman White. And hi, Director Freeman and Deputy Director Coates. Great to see you both. So I was interested in your presentation when you were talking about the considerations DPR makes to identify the various needs in each community about when you need to be open. And what are some of those metrics that you consider to determine what the demand is for a new site or for different hours of operation?
So we look at the attendance, we look at the amenities at the site, who's visiting the site. So when I think about the sites, the 8 sites that we decided to open at 6 a.m., Rosedale, for example, has a fitness center. There's a lot of residents in that area who use Rosedale at 6 a.m. to work out. Same thing for Kenilworth. So we look at the various programming, we look at the demographics of the particular community who's signing up for what programs, that, you know, the walkability, who's able to, you know, when we look at who's registering, what wards are they registering from all over the city, which in the case of our aquatics programs, they're all over the city. However, for our senior program, we notice that they're neighborhood specific. So when we look at programming, we pull the data to support whether or not a program will go into a particular recreation center.
But I guess when you say the data, like what data is that? Is that demographic data? Is that preferences of the community? How is that collected?
It's a combination. It's a combination of things. It is demographics of who's actually registering. We have a system called RecTrack, and so we can look at who's actually registered for our programs. And then we hear from our community all the time. I think you can walk in any recreation center and there's a QR code or an opportunity to give feedback. And then, you know, you have the you have various Friends Of groups. We see resolutions all the time from ANCs asking for various things. And so we take all of those things into consideration. We hear from you all about what the community concerns are and what the desires are. And then our partners on the ground. So as you've heard, every recreation center has its own, comes with its own community, and they have their own personality. And so we take all of those things into consideration, because what may work in one community may not work in another.
Okay, well, thank you for that context. And speaking of what will work in one community, what is our status on the MOU for Garrison and Banneker?
We are almost there. I know that I told you previously that we were there, and there were some things that we had to redo and walk back. We are almost there. And I just want you to know we're almost there.
What was the hurdle or the change that stopped the end of April deadline? Or, you know, it was initially supposed to be October 1, 2023 deadline, but extended every single month for the last 7 months. And so what was the last hurdle?
I know. You know, when you're working with 4 beautiful agencies that are trying their best to serve the community, and having different issues come up, we're just working to make sure that we get it right. Every one of our agencies have their own union, and we want to make sure that we are working in partnership with all of the appropriate labors, and just making sure we're just good stewards of this this agreement, because at the end of the day, there are people who have to actually do the work, which of course, and we just want to make sure that we're taking them into consideration.
Okay, so what's your new anticipated timeline?
would love to say tomorrow. My fingers are crossed, but give me until next Friday, which is Jump In, and I hope to see you there. So by Friday at Jump In, if it's signed, will you jump in with us?
Okay, that's a good deal. And would that mean that the security and custodial services are ready for this summer or for the start of the school year?
I believe we are ready for this summer.
Okay.
I
Okay.
believe everything is ready for this summer.
Okay, I'll keep my fingers crossed with you, but hopefully we can get that up and running. People in the community, in both of those communities, are really clamoring for this and have been expecting it for a while now, and so they will be very excited. So there's a requirement in DC law that requires that some of the permitting fees that are collected from schools that open up their spaces to the public go back to the school. And I think this is really important as we continue to see one of the impetuses for this bill was to incentivize and support school leaders that do make the choice to open up their spaces to the community. That is a win-win, but the most common pieces of feedback I hear for why school leaders don't feel comfortable doing that is security and trash. And so I have reached out to a couple of schools to see if they have been receiving these funds, and it sounds like they haven't been for the last couple of years. And so what is your understanding of that permit disbursement? And are you planning on dispersing part of those permit fees back to the schools?
So we only hold DPR permits, and I definitely will defer to DCPS on that. I can share with you, that's a DCPS question. That's definitely a
So
DCPS
the
question.
statute says that DPR is required to distribute a portion of the funds collected by permitted activity back to schools in order to offset some of their costs.
Okay, let me look into this. I can tell you the permitting costs are really, really nominal. And so it's like $7 to rent a field. So I will look into this, and $5 for a basketball court. So, but again, I will look into this and I'll have a response back for you.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate that because like for Garrison, for instance, we calculate that it would be about $32,000 just for the 75% owed back to them. And they're a school that needs a new dishwasher, for instance, like that could go a long way for them. And so happy to send you that citation so your team could take a look at it of the statute would be great to follow up with. Okay, so I guess I'm hearing opposition to these bills, and kind of what Councilmember Allen was talking about a little bit is like, of course, understanding that you need additional funding to extend staff resources and our resources, but if the funding hurdles are overcome, I'm trying to understand why there's still not a appetite for expanded access in this way.
Sometimes there's also staffing, right? And so a magic wand, here's all the money, but then there's still staffing and requirements to operationalize. And so at this time, I think that the goal is to serve, and I think that we can serve the public now, and we do serve on non-traditional hours in our current program offering. So I think that is, it's not an and or, but it's I think how we serve now is the best need for our community, right? Opening up the facility is not, we as experts, opening up the facility and saying, come on in, is not, okay, even opening up and saying we require programming, but then that requires staffing. And right now, I just don't think that that's the best way to solve for this.
Okay. I guess I'd say part of the funding goes to staffing, specifically to offset some of that time. But I'm mindful of my time, so I'll wait till next round if we're doing a second round, Chairman. But otherwise, thank you very much, Director.
Thank you. We are joined by at-large Councilmember Christina Henderson.
Thank you, Chairman White. Good afternoon, Director Freeman. So this bill or this hearing is on two different bills. So I'm going to ask some questions. I'll first start with Bill 25-0116, which is the hours expansion legislation. Is it your understanding that expanding the hours for all DPR facilities would also mean expanding access to the pools as well?
Correct. Correct, yes.
Okay. At this time, do you have enough lifeguards to expand pool hours at all of your aquatic facilities?
No.
Okay. I guess in that same vein, you indicated that DPR security needs would need to be addressed because you would have to shift security personnel from facilities with lower security needs to facilities with higher security needs. Can you talk a little bit more about this in terms of how this bill might, I guess, amplify some of those concerns or address some of those concerns?
Yes, Councilmember, I can answer that question. So we, as Director stated, we work closely with DGS and PSD to do assessment. And through that assessment, they determine the security needs. That includes cameras, that includes personnel, and all of those things. And so an increase in hours will also be an increase in security. And so that will also be in another assessment to determine the hours. And again, we do not, manage that because it's a contract. And so it will come at an additional cost.
Okay, so you're saying we would need to do another security assessment if we expand the hours to address some of those other pieces.
To locations that we do not have security, yes.
Okay. I'd also imagine too, and I'm asking these questions not to say I'm in opposition to this, but I want us to fully understand if we're going to go back to where we were and sort of expanding hours. And I see, I recognize people's desire to expand hours across the portfolio as opposed to in targeted areas. Like there are some things we kind of need to figure out. And one of the things that was kind of unanticipated, but it did come up when the public library system expanded hours was also they saw an increased need in terms of custodial and maintenance as well. Yes. Is that something that you all have contemplated as you think about expanding hours?
Absolutely. It will include janitorial support, security, as well as, trash cleanup. So yeah, all of those things have been accounted for in developing the plan for this.
Okay. Do you guys have information on the last time you all had expanded hours, how much that increased in expenditures for DPR's budget? I think
yes,
the last time we expanded hours was in 2019, I think.
No, 2023, last year when we came out, because prior to this bill being introduced, or I think one of the reasons this bill was introduced because DPR was operating on a 12 to 8 schedule across a portfolio, which had been during COVID. And so coming out of, excuse me, my allergies are really, coming out of COVID, we expanded the hours to 63 hours per week at some centers. We went from the 40-hour model. And costs, of course, increased significantly, as well as security and janitorial costs across our portfolio at our very popular sites. And all of those things, I think, estimated at roughly $8 million additional dollars a year.
Okay, but that was only for doing targeted sites to go up to. You did some expanded beyond the 40 at some targeted sites, right?
Correct, at 27 sites. And that's, yes, correct. So that's just at the 27 sites.
That's what I'm saying. So like
So,
that, I mean, I
correct.
gives that that provides a good data point of what it could look like, but I think we could sort of extrapolate in terms of what it would mean if we went further. In terms of Bill 25, excuse me, -447. So this is the expanding community access to safe and clean recreational spaces. Part of the bill would require that DPR have an annual agreement with DCPS around a variety of different issues in terms of community use of the site, et cetera. Now I know that DPR already has some agreements with some DCPS schools and some agreements with some charter schools. But are there plans for you all to, I guess, do this outside of the bill? Since you already do it, that's a weird question, but.
So we currently are working with, we do have partnership agreements with several of our schools. I think the difference in the bill, it talks about weekend access and things that we can't control, things that are out of our purview. It also requires that we open or have opened DCPS facilities where we do not have partnership agreements with. So I think that's an unintended consequence of this. And so we're not in support as we're not able to direct DCPS staff or the schools, and that will come from DCPS leadership.
Okay. I think overall, in terms of both of these bills, is sort of this idea that our rec centers are they're already community spaces, but it could be a community hub to sort of redirect some of the energies that we are seeing from young people, and also from young people who may not have anything, constructive to sort of stimulate their minds, et cetera, or their bodies from a physical activity standpoint, to give them an opportunity and place to go. I think we're all in favor of that. I think it's just figuring out how to do it in the best way. And, not setting up a system where now DPR is like doing all the mission creep, doing lots more outside of your scope and particularly outside of your own facilities, without giving you the additional resources to be able to accomplish some of those things. So I don't have any further questions, but I thank you, you and your deputy director for being here, for your time.
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. I did have one other question. I'm gonna say one, maybe more, but I did want to ask. We were at Baloo for the opening of the pool, for the 6 a.m. swim. We had a phenomenal time. I had a great time in the water. Great staff too. So thank you for that. But one of the issues we heard from staff was about the cleanliness of the locker rooms. And I know there's usage from the community and some of the young people there at the school, and probably a mixture of all. I mean, everyone's from the community. Have you heard that, Director? What's the conversation with, I guess, with DGS and DCPS trying to figure out the cleanliness of that space and other spaces like it?
So we continuously speak with DGS and DCPS on how we can support and what our issues are and how we can mitigate them. So we have heard about that. We're also encouraging the public to do their part. Don't just leave it there, pick it up, take it with you, So we have a whole campaign about keeping our spaces clean. You do your part and we'll do ours. So we are working to mitigate some of that. It's a whole collective. So yes.
We're still waiting for some of the other things to be done in Auction Run. But I am happy to see that the new toilets have been installed, and these things look fantastic. And I also understand I guess whoever installed it, African American business in DC, a CBE that installed them. So I think that's good. Just hope that we can keep them up, and to your point, that we can all collectively put in to keep these facilities and parks clean and healthy for people to use, especially our kids. Most of what I had to ask, Director, has been asked by other members already. And I don't see any other members here. So I want to thank you, Director, and your team for this hearing. It is now 2:23 p.m. On May the 16th, and this hearing is adjourned. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.